Hi, Mom. Yeah, no, can you pick up Chris after school? Yeah, I'm at the doctor's.
Mrs. Harris?
Describe your symptoms.
Hang on. Stress, headaches, nausea. Yeah, well, I work on Saturdays.
And how long has this been?
Equanimity. Balance your lifestyle.
Who do I have in the studios with me on the Valder BB Show?
It's George Kouronis.
Hi, George. Thank you so very much. What's going on in your world that you want us to know here in Dallas, Texas?
Well, we've got it's the 10-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and I was in the middle of the storm documenting it as an 18-year veteran storm chaser, and we've got a special week of programming on Pivot Television right now, the Project Katrina, A Decade of Resilience in New Orleans, showing how the city has recovered and is rebuilding and is preparing for the future.
It has made significant strides. It really has. It's actually better than it was in some ways.
Absolutely. They've done some tremendous refortifications of the city, put in new barriers and flood protection systems that is designed to withstand much stronger storms than what they experienced in Katrina. What a lot of people don't understand is that during Hurricane Katrina, the strong side of the storm didn't even hit New Orleans. It was in Mississippi, where I was. The right side of a hurricane is generally much stronger than the left side of a hurricane. And it was the left side that hit New Orleans. Plus, the storm actually weakened from a Category 5 down to a 3 in the few hours before making landfall. So New Orleans certainly did not experience a worst case scenario. As bad as it was, it could have been 10 times worse.
Well, I don't know. Try to tell that to the people that were there. I don't know if they'll buy that. We'll buy that. I don't know if they'll buy that.
Well, it was the most destructive, the most costly natural disaster in U.S. history. And the point I'm getting across is that it still could have been a lot worse without much change in what happened to the storm. So I'm glad that they've refortified tremendously.
They have. They made a lot of changes to the levee system. The civil engineers have really been on the job. But I was told that about 1,800 people lost their lives in Hurricane Katrina. Do you talk about that during the documentary?
Oh, absolutely. It was one of the worst storms in U.S. history in terms of damage and fatalities. And personally being there and experiencing that, I'm troubled by that because as a storm chaser, I want to be there to document the storm. But at the same time, I know that while I'm filming it, there are people around me that are likely having the worst day of their life, struggling for their lives at the same time. But for me to be there and share what I've seen to show other people so that maybe when the next storm comes along, they can prepare a little bit better. I like to think that that is my contribution. And I have a strict policy. Whenever I come across someone in a storm that needs help, I drop the camera and immediately lend help. And Katrina was one of the moments in my life that really impacted me heavily.
You call yourself a storm chaser. What does that mean, George?
Well, I travel around the world documenting the most extreme forces of nature, from tornadoes, hurricanes, erupting volcanoes, hailstorms, avalanches, you name it, in almost 60 countries. And then I show people through my television program, Angry Planet, through the web, through meeting people, talking to schools, things like that, showing people these wonderful and sometimes deadly and dangerous phenomena. The weather, when it's bad, is not necessarily a disaster unless it affects human populations. If Hurricane Katrina had stayed out in the Gulf of Mexico and not made landfall, it would have been a natural phenomena as opposed to a natural disaster.
Oh, well, we've learned something very much by talking to you. Let me ask you, you say you have, what's your connection with Angry Planet again? I watched that.
I'm the host of that show.
That's right.
Yeah, it chronicles my travels around the world as I get up close and personal with Mother Nature and sometimes poke her with a stick. And basically documenting extreme forces of nature around the world and looking at how climate is affecting weather patterns around the world, especially recently. So I've just come back from places like Siberia, Bangladesh, Laos, and northern Canada.
Is your life all that you thought it would be?
Well, it's an interesting ride, and this whole project we've got going on right now is really great. I was just recently in New Orleans, 10 years after the storm, of course, and meeting the people there and seeing how the city has rebounded and just the culture, the food, the music of New Orleans. It's in all of my travels all over, it still remains one of my favorite cities in the world.
Well, we have a strong listening population in Louisiana, and I'm sure they're glad to hear that. George, let me ask you, when does your documentary appear?
It's all this week on Pivot Television, plus there's supplemental information and articles and video clips on takepart.com/Katrina.
Well, George Kouronis, you are definitely a force of nature yourself. Continue doing what you're doing. There has to be people who love these kind of jobs.
Thank you very much. I do it so you don't have to.
Thank you. I love watching. Thank you so much, George Kouronis.
Cheers.